A front-page Wall Street Journal story today explains how companies are scrambling to offer deals and special dividends as the January 1st tax threat of the fiscal cliff nears. 173 companies have moved up their dividend payments to beat the tax man. Private equity shops, venture capital outfits, and even block traders on Wall Street are changing their behavior. So please, don't tell me that tax rate incentives don't matter. We're looking at it before our own eyes right now. Let's talk about this. CNBC contributor and former presidential candidate Howard Dean and Steve Moore of the Wall Street Journal editorial board, author of Return to Prosperity. Steve, I begin with you. We have from the Wall Street Journal editorial page, Costco's dividend tax epiphany, the 2012 tax changes that's going on. I mean, taxes matter, Steve, even though there are a lot of people in this world who think not.
Yeah, they matter a whole hell of a lot. And by the way, this was very predictable that these companies would be starting to pay deluges of dividends now, because if you pay the dividend payments now, your shareholders, Larry, only pay 15%. If you wait 6 weeks, then they have to pay as high as 40, 42, 45%, depending on where that rate ends up. And so taxes do matter. It's affecting behavior. And let me say this, that my good friend Howard Dean knows this, Larry, because when he was a governor, he cut taxes. He did not raise them to make his state, Vermont, more productive. So, Governor, you should be advising this president not to re-raising those rates.
Well, Steve, actually, I was hoping to get some help from you. You know very well. You know very well if there. I mean, one of the things we can both agree on is the deficit is out of control.
That's for
sure.
So
you know as well as I do that the best deal for deficit hawks, leaving aside what goes on in terms of taxes or revenue cuts, which we can disagree on, is going over the fiscal. I was going to call it the fiscal cliff, but it's really a fiscal slope. Because if they come to a compromise, you know very well that the politicians in Washington, both Republicans and Democrats, are going to reduce the size of deficit reduction dramatically. So my argument will be, let's go right down that fiscal slope. Let's raise the revenue and make the cuts that have to be made, which nobody in Washington is willing to make. And let's take a big bite out of the deficit and restore confidence to our markets.
But that's going to kill the economy. I mean, this is one of the things I agree with the president on.
It will not kill the economy.
But I want to stay
if you
on
do those tax increases.
Hang on. I want to make sure. This is a little different point. Okay, I hear you on the fiscal cliff, Howard. I respect your view as much as I may disagree. But what's really at stake here, or one of the things at stake here, Steve Moore, is the idea that changing taxes, for example, raising tax rates on capital and dividends and private equity firms and individuals and small business, that doesn't matter. And what I'm saying is, when you see how the financial world is reacting, we just reported on how the baseball world is reacting. In other words, these tax rate changes have a profound effect on economic behavior. Does Washington understand that?
No, they don't. And you know, we have so many pieces of evidence in this. One of my favorites is the fact that you look at these states, Larry, that have low taxes, like Texas and Tennessee and like Florida, and they're doing much, much better economically because they're getting jobs and they're getting businesses that are moving from high-tax states like New York and New Jersey and California. So we have mountains of evidence that proves this. And my concern is, look, if we raise these tax rates, we're putting the United States of America, this great, great country of ours, at a more competitive disadvantage. And it leads to the outsourcing of jobs that we want to see jobs brought back to the United States of America, not leaving our great country.
Let me respectfully disagree with my good friends Larry and Steve here. The fact of the matter is our tax is a high-tax state, even though I did cut taxes, and our unemployment rate never went much over 6.5% and has been consistently much below the nation's unemployment rate the entire time. Secondly, what you're seeing in Wall Street today is short-term behavior. Bill Clinton's tax rates, which is what we're going back to if we go over down the fiscal slope, had no negative effect in the economy. In fact, the economy was a whole lot better when Bill Clinton was president than it was under George Bush or Barack Obama. So I think your case is good in the short term, not so good in the long term. And I think the best way to restore confidence in Wall Street in the long term would be to show that we're serious about the deficit. I don't think any deal they strike is going to be as serious about the deficit as this fiscal slope.
I just think that era, look, you're right. The economy boomed, and especially in in the mid-1990s and the late 1990s. I don't think it did so well the couple of years after Bill Clinton raised taxes. In fact, that's one of the reasons in 1994 Republicans had the biggest election they've had in 100 years, because people wanted an end to the kind of liberalism. But you know what? The president better put some spending cuts on the table here, because if he doesn't, I just think the whole thing blows up. And Larry, I'm afraid now I think we are going to see a potential going over this cliff. And even the president's saying that's $2,500 per middle-class family.
See, I think that, Howard, the risk here, look, I want to get rid of the deficit, too. The question is ways and means. You look at what's happening. You look at what's happening with these financial players. They are anticipating higher marginal tax rates, and they're acting accordingly. My point, Howard, is that just as the financial world anticipates, work effort is affected by this. Risk-taking to start a new business is affected by this. I think this is the part that many people don't understand. Changing tax rates changes behavior. That's why the Major League Baseball players are trying to do what they're doing with their contracts. That's why venture capital, private equity
that's
firms,
short-term
it changes
stuff,
behavior.
Any reasonable person would move income from one year to another if they knew it was going to be taxed at a lower rate. What we need is consistent tax rates. Clinton, as I said before, the rates under Clinton did not have a bad effect on the economy. I agree. If you're going to raise things up to 70%, or you're going to take $5,000 from a middle-class family, yeah, that's too much. But the tax rates that Bill Clinton had were pretty good for America. We need to balance this budget. I am not opposed to more spending cuts. I am not. I'm not opposed to I'm against cutting Medicare benefits, but I'm in favor of payment reform, which we desperately need to do to control costs. So we can do this, but I don't see any particularly harm, other than we are going to go into a recession if we go over the slope. It's going to be shallow,
this question.
And then it's going to come out of it after 2 quarters.
If you don't think tax rates matter, why is it that over the last 30 years, since Ronald Reagan became president, tax rates all over the world have fallen? They've fallen in Europe, they have fallen in Asia, they have fallen in South America. I mean, it's happening everywhere because countries want to retain competitiveness.
I have never said tax rates don't matter. I'm saying going back to where Clinton's taxes are okay.
Howard Dean, Governor Howard Dean. Actually, I agree, Howard. We need stable tax rates. I agree with that. I just like to have flat tax. Steve Moore, thank you very, very much. I appreciate it. And folks, before we go, I want to send my very best wishes to my longtime friend and producer, Donna Vislocki, who's moving on to new opportunities for the next leg of her successful career. Donna, thank you and good luck. That's it for this evening's show.